thank you very much for having me. It's really great to be here. Of course, I'm representing Polygiene, and this whole discussion around sustainability, circularity is a big topic. So we're not going to dive very deep into these. These are topics that can take a lot of time on their own. But really what the talk about today will be to try and give a framework about how we can be sensible in this process and make it accessible. Yeah, let's jump in and please ask questions. I'd love questions, and afterwards we can have the discussion. So I represent Polygiene, and I've spent time in the footwear industry, lifestyle and fast fashion. So I think this whole idea of sustainability and circularity is something I've been close to, particularly the last sort of 8.5 to 9 years. And now I'm pleased to be in a business that can actually provide these companies with something that helps tell the story, or helps them to tell their story to consumers about how to be sustainable and circular in a sensible and accessible manner. Right, let's jump in. So I think just to start, I'm going to ask some questions. And the first one I just want to kick off with is to ask if any of you wouldn't want to save money, and in a very simple way, without really having to do anything besides buy into a product that's treated with some kind of technology. If there's anybody who doesn't want to save money in that way, please raise your hand and tell me. I'd be delighted to know why. And then I think the second point is, how many of you and our consumers wouldn't want to have more time for the things that you love? And the last one, who wouldn't like to do less laundry? So these are 3 questions I'm just putting out there, and you'll see why I'll circle back to them towards the end of the presentation. For those of you who don't know Polygene's mission, I'll put it up because it's integral to the talk. And our mission is very simple. It's to change products from fast consumables into durables. So we're passionate about helping close the circularity gap through extending the life of products. So we're always looking for new ways to add value to brands, to really help them tell their sustainability and circularity stories in easy, understandable and accessible manner. And I think the mission speaks for itself. So, how do we extend the life of products to make them more durable is what we're looking to do. It's not always as easy as it sounds. And, when you look into the definitions of things like sustainability, which I have decided to break up into the 2 words that make up sustainability, it goes something like this. So I've highlighted the parts in yellow that I think are relevant for our discussion. The first part of the word sustain is to endure without giving way or yielding. So to stand strong, to not give way. And the second part, to keep up or keep going in an action or process. So you could say it's to keep doing something without giving way, to stand strong in what you do. And the second part of the word ability, I've highlighted the yellow part, is the power or capacity to do or act physically, mentally, legally, morally, or financially. And you could kind of make a definition out of these 2 that I think is very relevant to all of us today, which would go something like this. To keep up an action without giving way by acting either physically, mentally, legally, morally, and financially. And I think some of those should be givens. I think that acting legally and morally is a given, so we could almost check those off. But what I really miss here is acting sensibly. So these are all very well, but this is a minefield, sustainability. And we need to bring a lot of sensibility into this, because how do end consumers actually find their way in this bigger discussion? Because people are lazy, and it's very difficult to participate as a single person. The second part of the discussion is circularity. And again, I've highlighted 2 points. The first one, relatively straightforward and self-explanatory. The state or quality of moving or repairing in a circle. And then now 4 is very interesting, because this is kind of been bolted on and just added on to the definition, I guess, relatively recently, because circularity is a discussion that is still in its infancy. So the practice of encouraging reuse, recycling, or sustainability in consumption. But where's actually the kind of extended life of products here? Because reuse is one thing, giving it a little bit of extended life. And recycling is sort of, post at the end of the life, how do you bring it back in? But I think we miss a few pieces of the puzzle. So nature does it well. It works in a cycle, things die, they decompose, new things grow, provide food, nourishment and the animal or the organism that eats it dies and it circles around. We are very bad at adopting this practice as humans. So we believe the loop is a little bit broken, and that's also because it's so young. So we want to help brands to bring a simple option to their consumers in this loop. What I also think is interesting is that when you look at the circular economy, people say it needs to be beneficial for both business and society. And this is clear, but I also think that it's a little upside down, and maybe I'll even be bold enough to say it's wrong. Our obligation as businesses is actually to think society first in our models, because if we don't, it's exclusive. This whole circular discussion is quite exclusive. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, 2% of the global population sort of fit into the top of the pyramid and the self-actualization. And as you go down the pyramid, it gets bigger and broader. And that's because that's where we also find a lot of people in the world where this is not necessarily applicable to them. But we have to put society as the foundation, because then the business actions we take are inclusive. So instead of it being at the top of the triangle, we go broad. And sensibility speaks for itself. I think we all need to flick that switch on again. It's about, mental susceptibility or responsiveness and quickness. So how do we actually make decisions that are sensible, that are informed, and ask why? And I think this is really important that we do our homework when taking an action, because there's a lot of clickbait and a lot of media fight out there, and we've probably become quite accustomed to not digging deeper into things. So sensibility is about digging deep and making decisions based on facts. Okay, and then, working in the fashion industry for some time, there was always this debate about ethical as well, sustainable, circular. And it's very clear when you look at what they stand for, that ethical fashion is about human rights, sustainability is generally about the environment, and circular fashion is about keeping things in circulation. And they kind of go together. But I kind of did a little grid to ask people, which parts you feel we can do without. And I think that the ethical discussion is something we all know about, and it's very tough to influence, but we should be strong enough to stand and say, what we stand for is good ethics. So I think we could all check ethical. If there's anyone here, again, who doesn't feel that they want to put a check in the ethical box, please feel free to raise your hand and tell us why. And I think from a sustainability perspective, it's the same thing. It's a global initiative. It's a big beast. It's a minefield, but we have to do it. The population is growing. The world is getting smaller. And if we aren't looking at things sustainably, it's game over. And then from a circular perspective, this all comes together in terms of how do we act sensibly to think about circular use from the start. So I imagine we can all check these boxes, but it comes to two different ways of interpreting them. So I think that the ethical, sustainable, and circular movements are ongoing. These are long-term, horizon 2, 3, and 4. And we should never get to a horizon where we say, now we're there. The world changes continually, and we have to be agile and adapt and readapt. And it's hard for big businesses because they've got very set ways of working, supply chains that are difficult to change. But then we've got, I think, the sensible short-term solutions that are becoming quite hyped and very much needed. But these are actually a way we can break down these big beasts at the top into bite-sized chunks for consumers to understand and participate in. So whether that's water waste or, you see the needle and the thread, and this is a big one at the moment. You see lots of brands pushing, the brands will be pushed to downstream, show what they do with products to extend the lifetime of them. And then, you see the hanger with the arrows. This is the kind of resale, pre-loved movement, which is also gaining traction and fairly easy to participate in compared to the repair. And then you've got the washing machine with the line through it. So how do we, wash our garments less? Because this is actually an interesting way to look at increasing the life of them. So we know that if you wash your garments frequently, they wear out. Every time you wash them, they shed. And that's why your favorite pair of jeans or a t-shirt or that actually lose fibers and they get thinner and they go into, they tear or get too thin and get holes. So there's many ways we can look at this, but the bottom line is how we make it bite-sized, and the top line is the big beasts that we have to do. I also wanted this slide is up for a very particular debate about cotton or organic cottons. That it's a big thing, but this is more to talk about, again, there are big challenges upstream, and there are also discussions around things like natural fibers being better in the slow fashion movement, why we're using synthetics. But I really think we need to look at the functionality of the garments and the products we make and talk more about the right material for the right use, so that you can, buy better and have this extended use. So it wouldn't make sense to use a cotton necessarily in something that's going to be hardware rubbing up against rock faces. There you might need a very hardware in synthetic that can last longer. But again, talking about water, which is something Polygiene is passionate about saving, it takes 20,000 liters of water to produce one t-shirt and a pair of jeans like some of us are wearing today. And then we also have to think about, as I said, these are bigger discussions at a high level. We can help. Polygiene can help reduce the amount of water that we use downstream. And I think that's where it makes sense to consumers and they can participate. I tried to make the presentation simple as well and sensible. So, if you go in and you just Google the circular loop of garments, what's interesting is there are hundreds of different models. And this is only for garments. So, where is the one model that makes sense that we all work to? And I get the feeling after really digging into this for some years and also being guilty of sometimes trying to change the model myself in previous roles to fit your business. It's kind of a retro fit that you do instead of holding yourself heavily accountable to one process that makes sense and that actually you have to deliver against. So, you can go through them. There's lots of them, and please don't look at the brand names. I'm not picking out brands. Where the orange circle is where we as a brand are very interested in participating and helping create a movement where people will ask, for garments that have an extended life. So lots of people talk about use, care, and repair. Same thing here: use, reuse, repair. Here it's just consumer usage, very broad. Over here, it's starting to dig into, full care information. How do you care for your garments? That's also a given. You always have your care labels. Durable materials, this is starting to get slightly different, and a long product lifespan. So it starts to get a little bit more specific about length of garments. Here, people have added in the resell, the repair. But as you can see, there's lots of different discussions happening where brands either are being pushed to participate or they feel it's going to give them good brand communication to the end user. This was one of the first ones I came across, and I've been looking at these for a very long time, where it talks about washing. But again, it doesn't talk about reduction of washing, it talks about care. Also, again, here, quite fancy, but use, reuse, repair. And what I miss a little bit here is, where is the actual push to say, how do we extend the life of garments? It's all seeming to be about repairing, which is extremely difficult to participate in, and we'll get there. And then this comes up, the circular fashion startup in Europe. And I think this is great because this talks about, new businesses that think circularity from the word go. I mentioned it earlier. Big companies like the ones I have worked for in the past have a very specific supply chain. It's hard to change the model without investing, millions of euros or dollars. And these businesses start from the ground up and surely should set the pace for the future. But where are businesses like Polygiene in this matrix? Because we supply, and support both in the sort of upstream, which is above the dotted line, in design, procurement, materials, and manufacturing. But then we also add huge benefits in the downstream where, in retail, we can add extra value to the cost of the goods because we extend the life through washing less. Clothing rental, imagine the cost of laundry and the laundry and cleaning costs every time something's been rented. if it was treated with a product that prevents odor or viruses, you don't have to launder as often. So there's a lot of benefits there. Second-hand platforms, if you were buying something that was, again, treated with an odor control or viral protection, here you also get the confidence that you're buying something that is generally got less contamination. So we can play a part in the whole circle, and we aim, and our ambition is to service as much of the supply chain as possible, and to create a pool below the line in the downstream side where people actually start to ask for products, whether it's ourselves or other ingredient brands, that add benefits to circularity, sustainability. And then, digging even deeper, where we really play a lot of, or have a big role to play in this extension of the life of garments. There's a lot of talk or advice out there. This is just the first page. If you put in how to extend the life of your garments, it goes on, you scroll down, you can click through 10, 12, 13 different pages, but this is what it looks like. It's extremely complicated, and it's not easy, or doesn't make sense to the consumer on how they can interact. So I'll just point out a few things. Carry a stain removal pen. I mean, this is really, if you think about sensibility and ease of accessibility to the circular movement or extending the life of your garments. I don't know anybody who carries a stain removal pen. If you do, you're really in the top part of the pyramid. Over here, this was really good as well. If you don't have time to treat the stain sort of immediately, mark the spot with a clothespin or a huge safety pin. So I'd love it if you were out and you got a splash of, nonna sauce in the Italian restaurant, and you start putting clothespins all over your clothes for when you get home. Even small things like button or zip up your clothes. I mean, we're a family of 5, and I can tell you that we're definitely not turning all our garments inside out, buttoning them or zipping them. It's not because necessarily we're lazy. We just have a lot of other things on our plate. So this is a minefield. And on the side where it starts to talk about washing clothes less, it's also very vague, or it's very complicated. Here it says, we challenge you to wear garments at least 3 times before they hit the laundry. Okay, is that your underwear that you want to wear 3 times? Or is that a coat that you could actually wear 20 times? So again, there's a lot of conflicting information that's vague. And it goes on. Here, this was also a good one. Invest in a diaper pail for your activewear. So come home from the gym or being active, and then put it in a diaper pail that's got baking soda in, and soak it. And it's complicated, and no one's going to do this. So, odor removal also has this list on the right-hand side, what you'll need. This is one of the many lists that came up, 13 different things about what you'll need to eliminate odor in your garments. And this is not with how to do it. So this is just what you need. And then there's kind of the whole how to approach as well. So it's difficult. If in doubt, hand wash. Also, yes, maybe we do that on 1 or 2 of our expensive items, but it's not practical or feasible. Or learn basic repairs. I just think it's complicated, it doesn't make sense, and it's hard to participate. And of course, you get to care labels, and care labels, some of them, you buy something and it's got almost like a booklet. It's almost like a novel sewn into it, because they're trying to cover their asses in all the different countries, in the languages and legislation. And now we have things like QR codes. I mean, could you imagine doing the laundry and going through 30 items you're about to put in the washing machine, with this, and scanning every QR code to find out how to do better with your garments. And so these measures are necessary, but they are impractical and not accessible. The other thing we know is that legislation is coming. This is the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and this will be legislated in the future, where brands will be asked to look at downstream activities, the use of sold products, and the end-of-life treatments. And Polygiene plays a role, and I think a lot of ingredient brands play a role. So it's not just about us, it's about how do brands work together to connect with ingredient brands, or with smaller startup companies or local agile businesses that plug into this. So sum up quickly, because we're getting in towards the last bit of the presentation in a minute, is what do we know? Okay, innovation lead time is long. Sustainability and circularity move slowly and are complicated. Garment care seems very complicated. Brands need to look at downstream activities for greenhouse gas protocol soon. We seem to have forgotten common sense, and people are lazy, myself included, right? So people are generally lazy. And what does this lead us into? Okay, what is the problem to solve right now? Because I think this is always about when people can solve a problem, this is where the magic comes. So what is the problem to solve? Who will be the winners? And a bit of where Polygiene can add value. Okay, so I think the problem to solve is relatively easy. It's the ease of participation needs to be key, because people are lazy and it's difficult to know how to interact, where to go. You know, you think about this image. How many of us have, you know, an item we love? Could be a pair of our favorite jeans, a jacket we've had that just, even a plain t-shirt that we absolutely love. You know, it gets a little tear in it, in the lining, in the back near the pocket, a down jacket. And guess what we do? We stick it away in the cupboard and it hangs there. And a week later, 2 weeks later, 2 months, maybe even a year later, it still hangs there because we simply don't want to give it up. And the reason it's there is because it is hard to participate, or it's hard to send that off. Where do I send it? Who do I send it to? Will they repair it correctly the way I want it? So this is what happens, right? We can't bear to throw it away, some of us, so we then donate it thinking, oh, well, someone less fortunate than me would still like this down jacket, even if it has a tear in the shoulder, you know, because it's an expensive Patagonia jacket. Actually, that's not what happens. When you do this, it goes into landfills or it gets incinerated. So we pass the problem on. I think this is a big challenge, and I don't believe there are winners. I think it's a collective solution. I think we need to connect together. For those of you who know blockchain, I've stolen this from a blockchain model where you have a central blockchain with side chains. I believe large businesses with big footprints and small agile vendors can connect. If we, for instance, as an example, took large retailers that have a large physical retail presence, and these were drop-off points for all brands anywhere in the world, and then you used local vendors who are local ones, so shipping costs are lower, footprint is better, and they're fast, and we are empowering local people to service the end consumer, this could work. It's a lot of discussion, but I think it's sensible and it's easy to actually get there. And I believe Polygiene is technology is a short circuit, not a circus, a short circuit. So by implementing the Polygiene technology upstream, we really address downstream challenges, and we can service many industries. I'm going to flip through a few quickly, and then I've got one slide to kind of sum up before we get in Q&A. This is the workwear industry, where it's heavy gear. You know, it's hard to launder, but people sweat a lot and you have a lot of environmental odors. So we can offer solutions here. And what I'm trying to show with these slides is that there are many categories that we can offer solutions in as ingredient brands. So it's not exclusive. We're very inclusive and actually have solutions for many partners in different areas. The hospitality industry, both the staff with their uniforms or the people in the kitchen, or the actual furnishings in the restaurant, stopping them, picking up odor, having to be replaced, heavy detergents to be laundered, speaks for itself. Hospitality industry, chefs and cooks change their clothing often because it stinks. And the cost of this laundry is very high. It's something we don't always see. It's kind of behind the scenes, this hidden thing. Home, hotels, stopping contamination of fabrics or odors. I think we all know being on the wetsuit solutions. And then, of course, activewear, laundering this less and stopping the permastink. And one that is very hard to tackle is kind of pets, beds, and things like this. They're very difficult to launder, difficult to look after, and it's the obligatory cute dog shot. And in closing with 3 slides, nobody likes to do laundry. Very few do it. Have an industry that shows a smiling woman putting garments into a washing machine. It's ready for disruption. We need to disrupt this whole cycle for circularity. We all want to feel that we're doing good for the world with as little effort as possible. So we can extend the life of our clothes by simply washing less. We can buy you more time. If you skip 1 load a year on an average of 392 loads, 3 extra days to do things you love or do charity work, 8,000 liters of water. If you work with us, you're working with an ethical partner that will help you tell your sustainability and circularity stories in an honest, sensible way in the short term, while you focus on your ongoing long-term projects. And we help you with your consumer messaging. We save people time. we save people money, we use less energy, you use less water, less microfiber shedding, less detergents, your clothes last longer, so you don't have to spend money replacing them as often, and we give you the confidence to be stink-free. So my last slide in closing, what's not to like? We look forward to connecting with you and to show you our products and to show you how we can partner to help you tell your sustainable and circular story, even for the laziest consumers. And that's it.
That was brilliant. Thank you. My main takeaways from that are that if you can do something that appeals to the laziness of us all, you've got a winner. And it appears Polygiene have a solution. Now, there are some questions, but we're actually running behind time. So Sean, I'm going to ask you to go online to the Slido, and then you can answer those questions. Because literally in 3 or 4 minutes time, we've got Aaron coming on for the next presentation. So Sean, as a closing comment, we've really taken how you can deliver a solution. Is there anything else you would like to say other than we are all lazy and we need to do less washing?
Not at all. I think you've summed it up fantastically. And, you know, if we can appeal to the laziest part of us, I think we have something a really big story and a way to close the gap. So, yep, continue to be lazy. We're not changing that behavior, but buy into a solution that allows you to be lazy and actually even give you more time.
I need to introduce you to my teenage daughters.
Look, I've got a few of those myself.
Thank you ever so much. Keep the questions coming in on Slido because we're going to make Sean do some work. And for the future presentations, we're going to go off and we'll be back within 3 minutes. So Sean, thank you very much.